Chapter 7. Old Blue Eyes. An arm reached out to steady Delia, keeping her from falling flat onto her butt. It yanked her back to her feet. She looked up, and her eyes locked onto Grant. "Careful there," he said. "Training for the track team?" he added with a chuckle. He dropped the paper sack of records that he'd been holding on impact, and careful squares featuring musicians' faces and vintage artwork had slipped out across the ground. Luckily, they looked unharmed. The snow had cushioned the fall. Tears ran down Delia's cheeks. She tried to brush them away, but they kept coming, making her feel even worse. You probably don't want to be seen with me," she blubbered. Why's that?" he said with a puzzled expression. He crouched down to pick up the records, dusting the snow off them. She started helping him. She'd never actually touched a record before. They were bigger and heavier than she'd imagined. Their cases almost as large as pizza boxes, though a lot slimmer. "Because I'm a charity case," she said in a shaky voice. Her eyes fell to her boots. "Haven't you heard? I'm going viral on Pick Perfect, and not in a good way." I don't have social media, remember?" Grant said with a grin. His eyes shone with amusement. "Oh, right," Delia said, again amazed at how different he was from every other kid he knew. She hesitated, unsure if she should tell the truth, but something in his eyes and his demeanor made her trust him. "Harper posted a pic of my new boots, calling them knockoffs, and now everyone at school is liking it and making fun of me." She pulled out her phone and showed him Harper's post. It had registered hundreds of hearts, pushing it up the ranks to the top of Pick Perfect. Now even strangers were liking the most humiliating pic of her life. "Why do you care what boots you're wearing?" Grant asked, sounding even more puzzled. He squinted at the post, then glanced down at her feet. "Actually, I think they're pretty cool." "Pretty cool?" Delia exclaimed in horror. "How could you say that?" "Well, if I was on that app, I'd give you a like for wearing them," he added. "Or a thumbs up, or a heart thingy, or whatever you're supposed to do." Delia just stared at him. "First of all, if you heart this post, then it means you like that Harper's making fun of me. You have to use a devil emoji." "Sounds complicated," he said with a shake of his head. His purple and black hair flopped into his eyes. "See, this is why I hate social media. Sometimes it seems like it exists only to make people feel bad." "You're missing the point," Delia went on with a frustrated sigh. "They are knockoffs. Cheap imitations of a designer brand," she added, hoping he'd finally get it. "It's pathetic to not have the real thing." "I don't know. They seem like nice boots to me," he said with a shrug. "You nearly plowed me over. Good traction for winter, right? And they look warm, too." "Well, everyone else in school disagrees," Delia said with a sigh, shutting her phone. "I appreciate you trying to make me feel better and all that, but everyone's making fun of me on Pick Perfect. Maybe she'll take it down, but only if I show up in the real thing. So let me get this straight. You need another pair of new boots?" Grant repeated, scratching his head. "Even though those seem perfectly fine, just to impress Harper and her glam posse and all the strangers on Pick Perfect?" "Yes, that's right," Delia said, feeling like she was finally getting somewhere with him. "Only I can't afford the real thing, which is why I'm totally stuck." She stared at him expectantly, but Grant just shrugged again. "That stuff on Michigan Avenue is all way overpriced anyway," he said. "You're just paying for the brand name. It's got nothing to do with the quality." She stared at him. Now he sounded like her mom. Who didn't care about the brand? That was crazy talk. She glanced down at her boots. But all of a sudden, if she forgot about the brand, they did look pretty cute. And her feet did feel warm. But that didn't matter. "Well, most kids feel the opposite," she said, remembering what happened at school that morning. "Just ask Harper and her friends." Why would I care about her? Grant said. I've always thought she was pretty basic and superficial. Delia's jaw dropped. Was he kidding? Well, she's got the top account on Pick Perfect at our school, Delia said, and she's the most popular girl. Well, I stand by what I said earlier, he said. Plus, you're pretty awesome, if you ask me. You're so smart, people are willing to pay for you to go to their school. His eyes locked onto hers, holding her gaze. Despite her humiliation, Delia started to feel slightly cheered up. Maybe she didn't need Harper and her friends to like her. Thanks, she said, blushing. She glanced at the storefront next to them. They were standing in front of Replay Vintage. The dusty display window featured mannequins wearing vintage clothes that looked like they came from another era. Because they did. None of it was remotely hip or trendy. It all looked slightly worn and frayed around the edges, too. Delia caught sight of her tear-stained face reflected in the dusty glass. Her hair was a frizzy mess, and that zit on her nose seemed to have doubled in size in the last hour. It looked angry and red. Ugh, I look hideous, Delia exclaimed, shrinking back from her own reflection. She tried to smooth down her hair. Grant gave her a curious smile. Actually, I think you look great right now, he said with a shake of his head. Better than Harper and her plastic friends, in my opinion. Are you blind? Delia said. Can't you see all my imperfections? I'd give anything for a filter in real life. It's because you look like you, he said simply. The real you, and I happen to like you. His words hung in the air, making Delia feel awkward. She appreciated his support, but had a hard time believing it was true. Couldn't he see her? What are you doing here anyway? She asked. Oh, this is the best place to buy used vinyl, he explained, fanning out his collection of newly purchased records. All Delia's music was digital, streamed directly into her phone. She'd never even noticed a record section inside the store. But don't you have Music List, the streaming app? Why would you want to buy records anymore? Vinyl still sounds the best, Grant explained. Warmer and richer and more human. New and trendy doesn't always mean better, you know. These albums are like solid gold. He flipped through the stack of records. Delia fixed her gaze on one, not recognizing the singer in the black and white photograph. He was older with white hair and kind, clear eyes. Who's that old man? Old guy? She asked. Oh, I should introduce you. Delia, meet Frank Sinatra, Grant said. One of my all-time faves. Frank who? Delia said. Is he related to Frank Ocean? Grant chuckled. You could say Sinatra influenced him. So in a sense, they're musically related. Hey, you should come over sometime and listen to Old Blue Eyes. Old Blue Eyes? She repeated with a frown. Yep, I'll fire up my turntable for you. Turntable? She repeated, feeling like a parrot. Right. It's another term for a record player, Grant said with a chuckle. You've got every social media app, but you've never listened to an actual record or heard of Sinatra? Guess not. But sounds like fun, she added, even though she wasn't sure that it actually did. Grant glanced at his watch. Hey, I gotta go to jazz band practice, but slow down, okay? I might not be here next time to cushion your fall with my vinyl. She watched him back down the alley with his collection of used records and a shy smile on his lips. He waved once, then vanished around the corner. Delia smiled to herself. She'd never met anyone like Grant before. He was different from all of her friends. Every kid she knew was obsessed with Pick Perfect and social media, not to mention brands and fashion. She wasn't sure what it meant, or what to make of it, only that she kind of liked it.